Okay, here we go. I'm going to read this to you. Welcome to Guild Leader's Story Hour. Here we go. Prepare yourself. During the early access 6.5 test, we're still testing. We've got a lot of things. It's been 3 years. We've got to do some testing. Yeah, no, he doesn't say sorry this time. And his posts are concise and spaced out. We're not getting like ex-girlfriend level of DMs at the midnight hour. During the semi-wipe, we intentionally lowered the overall hit to kill values and simplified the model by removing additional factors like random modifiers. Great, we're saying the same thing over and over again. Perfect. You think he used ChatGPT? I mean, you would know, Prophet. As a result, we observe positive effects, such as an increased possibility of 1v3 comebacks. A possibility, but not an actuality. And more opportunities for players with low-tier gear to overcome the opponents with stronger equipment through superior skill. I mean, I also love bullet points, though. Am I ChatGPT? Guild Leader Protocol Terminus? It's possible. However, it's really not through superior skill. It's more like picking Barbarian. However, there were clear downsides. Instant deaths were frequent. Instant. You load into the game, you're dead. Which is not suitable for our game where players carry items accumulated over multiple rounds. This is the good SDF. The bad SDF is the one that apologizes a lot and then like rambles back and forth and says, "Hey, we're gonna make it so solo players can play in trios," and then just kidding, we'll just bring back solos altogether. There's the Magic Carp SDF, and then there's the good SDF. This time we've got the good one. All right, so frequent deaths are bad because you can build up items and then lose them all. Right. New players often died from monsters in one hit, increasing the likelihood of quitting before learning the game. I mean, there's something else that made people quit, but that's not a bad start. Through this test, I confirmed that the solution I sought was not simply a lower HTK, but rather sufficient room for players to reduce HTK through their own skill. We've been telling you. We've been telling you, SDF. Read the Discord, mate. The basic principles we aim for in combat balance going forward are as follows. We've got solid. This is solid information. Bullet points. Both skill and gear must matter. Wow. Wow. Only when these two elements are well balanced can players feel rewarded for their growth and effort. I'd say there's something else missing from that equation. There's a Swoobat and there's a Charizard. Guess who is SDF, dude? Skill and gear, dude. I mean, it's just better than the last posts. It's just better than what it's been. If skill becomes too dominant, the meaning of collecting and upgrading gear disappears. If class balance is fraught, barbarians win. That's what he needs to say. Rangers and barbarians win. And sorcerers. All right. Hold on. Conversely, nice use. SDF, nice one. If gear becomes too powerful, the game turns into a simple stat check, reducing the opportunities for skilled players to make comebacks or showcase their abilities. We have been in this for 2 years. I think he's talking about the shoes, Xbox. Conversely, right? We've been in this state of the game for at least like 2 years. For at least 2 years. The Mountain King, dude. What's up, dude? For rogue class balance, a little bit more survivability, a little more utility in groups. That's it. Rogue should always be a class where you outskill your opponent. If rogue is too powerful, the game becomes less fun for everyone else. Yo, but sick video, Mountain King, by the way. Like the dwarf get up, baby. I usually come in with look, I got a rogue hood over here. I'm gonna have to get sweaty in a second though. You know, we can put the hood on, we can creep in the shadows. But I'm gonna get sweaty in a second. We're gonna do some dancing. I'm gonna show you a forbidden technique you've never seen a rogue perform. Especially not one as old as me. When you become 1,000 years old, you've got to look to new avenues to strengthen your skills. Simple knife training technique videos on YouTube will no longer teach you tricks that you don't already know. You've got to resort back to Japanese dance pad gaming, rhythm games. A rogue has muscles? Yo, there's nothing there, dude. It's empty. I had him like 6 months ago. Lost them all, dude. I'll get them back. I'll get them back someday, dude. Look at me. I'm a stick. Sticks are nice, dude. I like trees. And trees, they're full of sticks. I'm getting distracted. Let's read the rest of this. Look, just saying, we've been in stat check land forever. The game has always been, if you could outgear your opponent, you were at a significant advantage. Sure, you could still die by sucking. Sure. But if you brought in an artifact weapon and 6 life after deaths, you're winning, baby. 6 kind of sounds like dicks. Both skinnier than they are long and shorter than they are wide. Show me on the doll where D&D took your gains. I wasn't that streaming that took the gains, man. I would do push-ups in between deaths before, but now, you know, I've got to tilt the camera down and, you know, maybe children are watching. They don't want to see an old man struggle. Might remind them of their father. Anyway. Hit to kill. This is nice. We've got a new word here. Hit to kill. This is what you can perform on your ex-girlfriends. In New Zealand, we say dex instead of, I don't know what the fuck that is, dude. Bukini? Maybe if I read it backwards. Yanakgob? Yeah, that's better. Should be maintained at an appropriate level. Balcony. All right, dude, balcony. Dicks. You got a couple of nice dicks on your house. Yeah, love a nice house with a big long dick. Like that. Nice. Hit to kill is a great way to compartmentalize a certain avenue of the game, right? Classes should kind of have like a minimum baseline hit to kill. That's way better. I mean, like you could literally just get away with HP and just have little Legend of Zelda hearts, and it would be very similar, right? That would be probably better. Oh, God, I love those wooden dicks on a black painted house. I know, it's nice. Put a little white pine up there. Make sure it rots in the rain. Yesterday I was just trying to chill on that dick, but it's too hot. Had to go inside. I hate you guys. Allowing players who perform well, e.g. Barbarian, Sorcerer, Ranger players, to reduce their hit to kill and increase their chances of victory by taking cool perks like Crossbow Mastery and Headshot Cool Guy and Morale Boost. God, my dick is getting too moldy. Damn. Nice. So this is good. He wants to give classes some way of reducing their hit to kill and increase their chance of victory, or increasing hit to kill, whatever. You understand what I'm saying. By some skill expression. Not a bad place to start. Gear differences must have clear meaning, as this creates the fun of loot progression in the game. Now, I'm a little disappointed because I was hoping that we were going to get away from looting as a form of progression, although that is a staple. We were speaking about time to kill before, but hits to kill is a better metric. And he's going to explain that in just a second. I was hoping we were going to get more forms of like long-term progression, and long-term progression could literally be like, you play for 4 hours, now you're max level, now you got some perks, you're better than the newest guy. That's it. Nothing crazy, not like you had to play for 4 years to unlock some sort of mastery or whatever. A mastery system where you specialize in a particular weapon or a particular build sound a little bit more interesting to me than just loot. I'm not a crazy like loot fanatic though. I like looting in the dungeon just in the sense that like it's nice to see what's on a man's corpse, you know? It's nice to run a fella's pockets when you're in the dungeon. That's always fun. It's nice getting a little bit of upgrade when you're playing in normals and now you feel really powerful because you found a lucky like epic weapon on the first floor or something like that. That stuff I think feels pretty good in the game overall. That's troll piss. Nice. Overall though, like it doesn't really, the gear services a play style for me. Looting is important, but you have a point. Progression in a dungeon should be RPG like. It just is it's a trope of fantasy games. Can't wait for next patch. I've been calling for a progression in the form of a home base, limitless potential. That's also a classic means of progression. We sort of have it with like leveling up your vendors to sell better gear, but like the gear quickly gets outshined by having the market in place. So like the vendors are competing with the marketplace is superior. You pretty much just avoid, yo, camera one, Clippy, welcome to the tavern. We're reading the notes, we're giving you a hot take, fresh out of SDF's kitchen and into the guild leader's lair. Fantasy games are synonymous with a leveling up progression system with classes and varying your classes in a more like bespoke or more kind of unique sort of way. Arcane Trickster Rogue or whatever is a good example from Dungeons & Dragons. Everything is basically based off of Dungeons & Dragons, and they have a varied, insane list of prestige classes and, multi-classing builds that you can do. And, like, you can really only do that if there's heavy limitations applied to it. Meaning that in Dungeons & Dragons, when you take on a multi-classing role, you have limitations. You need to hit certain stat markers. You need to have there's certain like things that you can and can't do. By taking a level of rogue after you take a first level of fighter, well, you're not gonna get double attack until you're level 5. You're setting yourself back in a longer form progression for a short-term power gain. I don't necessarily know how you would design that in this game. I'm not willing to spend the time to do work for these guys. They're the game developers. I'm a streamer. But similar systems are what people expect in a fantasy game. In other games, shooter games, jet games, racing games, horse, anime, girl games, you don't expect those things, but sometimes they're there. And it's fun when it's there because then you've got genre crossover and you're like, hell yeah, my anime horse girl is also a level 3 barbarian and she's bringing a double axe onto the track and splitting horse wigs in half. You get my point, right? 100% agree. There should be a big difference between Dad and other extraction games. It should be familiar, where if you know extraction games, you get it. Looting, getting out of the dungeon, like those things. The risk is what's important. I've been calling... they aren't fantasy-themed games. Yeah, well, I would say that the extraction genre facilitates your world's fantasy. Right, like Tarkov, I think, is a fantastic example of this. Arc Raiders, another good example of this. In Tarkov, you're a Russian mercenary, like in a apocalyptic, post-societal collapse world. So, like, you need stuff. You need generators and batteries and nudie mags to get by. And so, like, when you're blasting dudes with a gun, SWAT style, with your lads, that feels good. You feel like a Russian mercenary. You feel like you're going to go back and drink some vodka and do the squat and smoke some cigs. It facilitates that fantasy. How do you facilitate that fantasy in a fantasy world? Well, I'm not exactly sure, but like the loot is definitely a part of it. I think things like quests should feel more interesting. I think exploration should have a bigger emphasis in a game like Dark and Darker. The map should be a little bit larger, I think. Right? There should be more sort of like random events that occur, right? That's like a classic staple of fantasy games. You're out in the wilderness, you're in an unknown location. Anything could happen. A dragon could show up. A maiden might need your help. Oh, psych, it's a Medusa. Whatever, right? Just depends on where you're at in the world. So things like that could make the game a little bit more interesting, but they're far too difficult to code for these guys to figure it out yet. They've been tweaking the dials constantly and very, very slowly trickling in actually new content to the game. I think Fog of War was like an interesting take on it. It made the game feel more dungeon crawling light. It didn't work with boss summoning items, but it definitely made people explore different areas of the map, and take fights against other players in different areas of the map, which I think is kind of interesting. It also like makes sure that the boss isn't dead within the first like minute and a half, and that like if you get the good spawn, you know, where the boss is right next to you, well, you might not know it because you might go the wrong way. To me, I think those things are kind of interesting, and gives kind of like, especially when there's like a loose logic to where the modules spawn at, where they're not exactly always perfectly randomized, but there's like a Ghost King could be 3 rooms east or 2 rooms south of this module, you know, like that kind of thing. Then that rewards you for like learning the systems of the game a little bit. Fog of War is a necessity with the way maps are set up. I think it's a good system overall. It just needs to have something else added on top of it for it to be a more complete. Or like the maps need to be larger or more varied or something like that. Because like ultimately you can kind of figure out where you're at really quickly. Like getting the square and figuring out where you're at in the square kind of sucks. In my opinion, there shouldn't be a map at all. That's what I would like. No map whatsoever. No heads up names above your allies, and no maps. But I like old school MUDs, and most people don't even play those anymore. All right. So he's not wrong about the gear differences, and gear versus skill. I think is two important metrics to figure out the balance of the game. That's a good way of just putting it simply. There's these 2 parameters, gear and skill. They both affect hit to kill. We need to adjust them so that the hit to kill doesn't feel too unrewarding depending on your skill, or too overpowered depending on your gear, right? Fortune teller could sell an item to clear the fog on a square. In my opinion, it should be like a shrine or something like that. It could maybe be a craftable or something like that, but something like that should be highly valued. Maybe not like gold key valued, but 1,000 gold, something like that. MUDs must be even older than Blim. I figured that was the real Clippy. Nice. I am almost 40 years old. In human terms. In a fantasy world, I'm over 1,000 years old. Okay. Let's cover this part. Gear aspects. So now here we are. We're punching it up, dude. We're punching it up. Maintain an appropriate hit to kill in fights between players with similar gear levels. You shouldn't feel, because this guy's playing a different class than you, that you're going to die. This is how I feel as a rogue. I see a barbarian. Barbarians should be an uphill challenge, and there should be an asymmetrical design to classes based on difficulty of performance. There needs to be like, this is the newbie healer class. This is the newbie melee fighter class. Right? Barbarian fills that role well. It's a little too strong right now. Right? They have a lot of tricks to catch people in melee and keep them there. And while that feels really good on Barbarian, some of the other classes, like Rogue, have very limited skills to escape those tricks. So there's no real counterplay. If you get hit by a Savage Roar or a hit from any Barbarian weapon, you're taking 2 shots, you're out of the game. So really you have to fight them with almost out getting hit completely, which is fun for me, but anyone else, Rogue is like a classic fantasy archetype. A lot of people, when they start the game, pick Rogue, they pick Ranger, they pick Fighter, right? These are like classic archetypes that people expect in a game. And when people pick Rogue now, they go, oh my God! I didn't think it was going to be like this. Anyways, recognize hit-to-kill differences caused by gear gaps as a unique feature of the game. I think this is also an important distinction for SDF to make here. It is a unique feature of the game. Having better gear means you put more time in, means you have more resources. This is what it should mean. Could mean you swiped your credit card. Whatever it could be, you got handouts from your audience. Could be any of those things, right? Could be you got a little lucky. That's not necessarily the worst thing for the game, but having more gear than someone should give you an advantage. That advantage shouldn't be completely countered by, by someone's 2-tapping you in the head from a windlass crossbow from, halfway across the room or whatever. Reward precise actions like headshots with higher damage. I think it's good that headshots, the dials aren't right currently, but it's good that headshots are rewarded, right? If classes had more ways of protecting their head, for instance, right now in Dad, if you have a shield, shields can significantly buy you time in a melee fight. Shields can significantly save you against spells and ranged attacks. If you are a class with no shield, all I've got is a rogue and Viz, mate. If I get spotted, I've got to be the wiggly line. I've got to worm my ass around. I got to hit the floor, do the dinosaur, a couple of fucking breakdance moves, and hopefully, get close to him. I'm not saying give rogues a shield or give rogue a ranged weapon, but I need a little something else. If headshots are going to remain as rewarding as they are, even with gear gaps, provide skilled players opportunities to catch up without undermining the value of gear. This is also very important. What we've done in this patch is we have undermined the value of gear. Now it feels like there is no reason to go into the dungeon. I would say give us other reasons to go into the dungeon. More engaging quests would be a nice start. Turning on 300 torches is a bad quest. It's just a bad quest. I'll deal with kill 10 goblins or whatever. That's fine. But give me a little something. This is an opportunity for you to tell a story with your game. We've got one quest that tells a good story with the game, and that is the Leathersmith's daughter. Finding her human remains in the Inferno is nice. That's nice. Tells you a little something about what's going on. Now you know the Leathersmith has a daughter. Nice. Did he have a wife? Who's his wife? Is it the goblin merchant? Probably. Because the human remains are really small. Okay, let's see. We have prepared an appropriate H-decay value for the upcoming patch and adjusted it so that players can reduce H-decay through skillful play to a satisfying degree. I don't know what this means. I appreciate that they want to keep secrets, but at this point we need a little bit more concrete answers. This is not very concrete, although I am intrigued. I hope this will satisfy most of the players. You might as well just said sorry at the end of this, or put a clown emoji there yourself. Also, since there's no longer a need to undermine the gear power fantasy, we plan to keep the random modifiers in place until someday when new exciting systems are introduced. Don't give me someday SDF, give me concrete. I need facts, baby. I need information at this point. You've done good so far, but we're spiraling out. We're spooling out. We're about to hit hyperspace of cope. These random modifiers will be managed at a balanced and enjoyable level without being overly restricted and will be maintained at a scale that does not require too many brackets. This sounds like he's trying to bring back brackets. Don't do it. Don't do it. I think it's fine to keep everybody into trios, personally. if it was more fair for solo players. Currently, it's pretty fair for duos, but it's not really fair for solo players to go up against a trio. So something needs to happen there to make that a little bit more balanced. But getting everybody in the same matches feel good. The handshake mechanic feels good, although it quickly goes out the door when everybody is just bloodthirsty and you're killing everyone. There needs to be a little bit more incentive to like party up in the dungeon rather than just like, I've got one more guy. In my opinion. I'm satisfied with the internal test results and eager to start adjusting the abilities of underused classes right away. Which are those, dude? What's that? But I plan to spend more time researching the remaining challenge, enabling a solo player to reliably play in the mixed queue at a practical level. I think that's good. I like hearing this. Because more variability in the dungeon feels more like a living world. Right? No one, like, when you go into the dungeon, is there like there's a steward at the front that says, sir, you've got 2 people with you. Go into this is the duos version. Right? That feels a little artificial and not like a fantasy world. It breaks verisimilitude a little bit. And I would say anything you can do to increase verisimilitude in a fantasy world is going to go a long way for you. People generally are kind of curious about the world. It's fun to explore. This will be the final challenge. I want to verify through this opportunity, and will do my utmost to find the answer. I don't know what the outcome will be, but please bear with me a little longer. Thank you. Thanks, SDF. We'll hold the line. Oh, I almost forgot to mention one more thing. The Arena Test 5 will be conducted in solo self-found mode. Thank you. This is another alternative system that gives a little bit more meaning to us questing in the dungeon, to us unlocking vendors, to us finding bis. Making the arena solo self-found feels like you're rewarded for going in the dungeon and playing the game like you're supposed to play it. That's nice. The reason SSF was not maintained recently was due to accessibility concerns. I think this is a total farce. However, since we have created more opportunities for player to overcome gear deficiencies with skill, we plan to retest SSF format. The arena must clearly be linked to dungeon farming loop. Yeah. He's figured it out. Nice. Thank you, SDF. You've seen a small glimmer of light. There's a twinkle in your eye. There's an infinite amount of liquid left in your shallow cup. Yeah, it's just a good system overall. When you remove it and you can buy bis off the marketplace and bring it into the dungeon. I wasn't a fan of SSF totally. I'm fine with it being in the game. That like pacing in the beginning of a wipe where you get a little solo self-found, then the market comes back. I'd rather see like the merchants be more robust. I'm not too crazy about the market, but overall, like the thing is that items don't drop at the same rate in the dungeon. There's more skeleton guardsmen and swordsmen than anything else in any of the dungeons, really. So, like for instance, I was on the Discord earlier today. I mentioned the same point about solo self-found, that items don't drop at the same rate. So if you're going for a specific build or looking for a specific item, it can be very difficult to find what you're after. For instance, many of the daggers are bad. Got me so hooked in the game I started making YouTube videos. I think it's really good for verisimilitude. It feels good for a lot of people. But like, everybody thought demon dogs drop daggers in the Inferno. They changed it. Demon dogs used to drop daggers. They changed it to harpies, sometimes slimes, and sometimes the little imps that walk around. No magic healing items for Warlock. That feels rough, but I think Warlock players complain a little bit right now about not being able to find a lot of magic healing. I think they had too much magic healing before, though. You know what I mean? Like, they still get a decent amount of healing right now. And that could just be because the HP pool is really small, but they need a little bit, but not like 20 points of magic healing. Because then it makes a Warlock feel absolutely insane, where if they have like 3 to 5 seconds of breakaway time in a fight and a mob or something to like suck on, worse and worse. Nice. Then they immediately are back to full HP, and then that feels kind of bad, right? Where it's like this invincible sort of class. especially for range damage dealers that can't really apply the significant damage that like melee, like the hit to kill melee can do. Yeah, I'm no Warlock apologist, but I agree that thinking about balancing where to get what loot should be considered. Yeah, 4 and 4 SSF. I think SSF feels good to most of the player base. Generally, people kind of like enjoy it or can tolerate it. So I think that's like a good thing to add or to cycle into the game. I like it better when everyone is forced to play solo self-found for a little bit. That makes things like your gold storage feel a little bit more important and significant. The problem is that when you release the marketplace like 2 weeks in, right, there's like a huge glut. And so like during those 2 weeks, storing gold might be difficult, right? You might not have a lot of liquid gold. You might have a lot of items. But then there's a huge glut of the market. And so, you're not going to make a lot of gold either. I think glut's the right word. For real, they just curse 12 things and phantomize. Yeah. The phantomize, like being able to cancel phantomize, while I think that is an interesting skill for warlocks to have, currently it is far too strong. Having it be like on a reliable timer gives you it gives the warlock an opportunity to get away if they're good with it. It's not just like a free get out of jail card, right? Because it could kill them. But also it makes it more reliable for counterplay. When they can cancel it themselves, they kind of have all the trump cards up their sleeve. All right, so that's the end of that. We've yapped on for too long. It's time to do some dancing. Yep. Well, we'll go back to that. If you guys haven't seen it, maybe most of you guys have seen it. I think you've all seen it, but, we got the sick tavern. Welcome to the tavern. Clippy, that's you now. Hey, yo, you can go deep in my ass. Yeah, we allow those. Thanks. Appreciate that, Bella. Have I ever played Barony? I've not played Barony. I know of Barony a little bit. Isn't it kind of like one of those like Kingdom Come sort of games, or like whatever, Castles and Lords or something like that? Aren't you like controlling an army of dudes and also like, increasing your lineage, finding hot maidens and building a castle? I like a little bit more magic in my medieval setting. It's a classic roguelike. Okay. We're talking NetHack style? Are we talking NetHack style though? Because NetHack, I've only beaten ever once and I cheated. First person dungeon crawler. Okay. I think I know what you're talking about then. I do really feel like Dark and Darker is the modern day version of old school classic dungeon crawlers. All right. I'll look it up. Hold on. Let's make sure nothing sketchy's over here. Here we go, dude. Here's Barony. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, dude. That's what we need. I don't know what any of those things are, but he's clearly got a giant dildo, and he's about to stick it in that thing. And that's nice. That's nice. All right, it's dancing time. I'm about to show you forbidden rogue techniques that'll blow your mind. Are you ready to watch a 40-year-old man touch the glowing lights on his custom dance pad to ancient pop songs and anime songs? Well, it's about to happen right now.